Have you ever noticed how the most magnetic connections rarely start with immediate enthusiasm? Instead, they often begin with a quiet, almost imperceptible emotional distance. Human attraction is governed by a fascinating and counterintuitive paradox. We are naturally drawn to what requires patience to decode. When a woman meets someone new, her initial reaction is rarely pure acceleration. There is almost always a measured pause, a slight leaning back. This hesitation is not an accident of personality. It is a fundamental feature of how female interest naturally develops over time. Immediate availability often signals low perceived value. Meanwhile, calibrated restraint communicates self-possession and internal boundaries. When someone is instantly and completely accessible, the mystery evaporates. Without space for curiosity to grow, authentic anticipation simply cannot take root. This is why the early stages of dating often feel like a subtle dance. A step forward is met with a graceful step back. Distance is the canvas upon which desire is painted. If you rush to close every gap, you deny her the opportunity to lean in. Understanding this dynamic changes how you interpret quietness or delay. What looks like indifference is frequently just an internal calibration process. She is observing how you handle ambiguity and whether you maintain your composure. Patience under subtle pressure is the ultimate test of confidence. Men who panic at the first sign of emotional reserve often misread the room entirely. They push harder, demanding warmth before trust has been properly established. That pressure destroys the very spark they are trying so hard to ignite. Attraction requires air to breathe, and hesitation provides that essential oxygen. Value is always proportional to the investment required to reach it. As we explore the deeper layers of this psychology, keep this core truth in mind. The quietest beginnings often lead to the most enduring connections. Beneath every layer of modern courtship lies an ancient biological reality. For millions of years, the physiological stakes of reproduction were vastly asymmetrical. A woman's physical investment in any single pairing required total biological commitment. Evolution, therefore, favored the cautious mind over the eager one. Reserve was never a game. It was an innate survival mechanism designed to evaluate risk. When a woman displays initial hesitation, she is running a quiet calculation. She tests your consistency against the backdrop of her own safety. Pacing is the natural firewall of female desire. It slows down the momentum of a fast-moving attraction, giving her analytical brain the time it needs to spot discrepancies. Social conditioning reinforces this deeply ingrained biological caution. From a very young age, girls are taught to monitor their environments. They learn to read micro-expressions and subtle shifts in tone. This makes female social intelligence exceptionally sharp. When she holds back her enthusiasm, she is filtering for genuine value. Anyone can put on a charming display for an hour. Few men maintain that steady alignment over weeks of deliberate pacing. Time exposes the character that intensity tries to hide. Emotional withholding functions as a stress test for your patience. If a man grows frustrated or entitled when he hits a wall of reserve, he instantly fails the subconscious screening mechanism. Her distance is a test of your emotional self-possession. She wants to see how you handle a momentary lack of validation. Do you collapse into neediness, or do you remain grounded and secure? This dynamic is entirely practical from her perspective. Safety always precedes vulnerability in female psychology. Without safety, emotional investment remains locked away. Testing is how she builds that necessary container of trust. Every small test checks a different dimension of your stability. Can you respect her boundaries without sulking or pushing harder? Can you maintain your own life while she takes time to process? Independence during a freeze-out is the highest form of attraction. It signals that your self-worth does not depend on her immediate approval. When a woman notices that you do not chase her manufactured distance, her nervous system relaxes into a deeper sense of security. The screening mechanism shifts from testing you to trusting you. This is the precise moment when reserve begins to melt away, not because you beat her at her own game, but because you proved you were safe enough to let her guard down. Trust is the only currency that buys down a woman's walls. Understanding these evolutionary roots changes how you view her resistance. It stops feeling like a personal rejection or an annoying hurdle. Reserve is her quiet way of protecting what is valuable. Once you realize this, you stop rushing to break her barriers. You simply stand your ground, remain consistent, and let time do its work. That quiet self-possession is the ultimate answer to her test. Human valuation follows a simple, often unspoken economic rule. Whatever is endlessly abundant tends to lose its perceived worth. Conversely, whatever requires effort to secure naturally commands attention. When a woman moderates her availability, she initiates a subtle shift in leverage. She stops being a constant presence in the background of your day. Instead, her attention becomes a scarce commodity. This scarcity completely alters how the human mind calculates value. Psychologists call this the principle of perceived restriction. When access to someone is limited, the brain assigns higher priority to them. Every interaction carries more weight because it is no longer guaranteed. Scarcity transforms routine communication into a high-value event. Think about how we treat things that are always within arm's reach. We ignore them, postpone them, or take them completely for granted. Now, imagine that same resource suddenly becoming difficult to acquire. Suddenly your focus narrows and your urgency spikes. In romantic dynamics, a woman understands this mechanism instinctively. She knows that immediate, unending compliance breeds complacency. By stepping back, she creates emotional space for you to wonder. In that quiet space, your own investment begins to multiply. We value what we must work to keep. Notice what happens to your time when a response takes longer. Hours stretch out, and you find yourself replaying past conversations. You are investing cognitive effort without her even being in the room. When she delays her replies, she asks you to spend your time waiting. This waiting period forces your mind to justify why she is worth it. When her focus is divided, you start working harder to earn her gaze. When plans require coordination, your logistical investment deepens. Each of these three investments changes your internal hierarchy. You stop evaluating her from a stance of casual indifference. Instead, you find yourself actively seeking her validation. Perceived unavailability manufactures emotional leverage out of thin air. This is not necessarily a malicious manipulation tactic. It is simply the natural rhythm of high-value social exchange. People protect what they cherish, and they cherish what is hard to win. When a woman holds back her full enthusiasm at the start, she is testing whether your interest can survive the friction. If you chase too hard or panic at the first sign of distance, you reveal that your own foundation is easily shaken. True composure respects the pause instead of fighting it. Understanding these mechanics allows you to observe the dance objectively. You see the distance not as a rejection, but as a natural calibration of mutual investment. As scarcity does its quiet work, valuation rises on both sides, and the connection deepens beyond mere convenience. Misreading the subtle signals of attraction can cost you a meaningful connection before it even starts. There is a profound difference between a woman who is quietly testing your patience and one who has firmly closed the door on any potential engagement. The untrained eye sees only distance and assumes rejection. The emotionally literate observer looks closer at the quality of her hesitation. When a woman is genuinely uninterested, her responses carry a flat finality. She answers your questions with polite brevity, offering no new threads for conversation to follow. There is no curiosity in her tone, and her body language consistently angles away from you. Conversely, a woman who is modulating her engagement reveals a very different pattern. She might take hours to reply to a text message, yet when she does respond, her message is surprisingly thoughtful and detailed. True disinterest is characterized by a distinct lack of awareness regarding your presence. She forgets details you shared, misses milestones, and treats your interactions as entirely forgettable. Strategic reserve, however, maintains a hyper-awareness, masked by calm composure. She remembers small, seemingly insignificant details you mentioned weeks prior. She tests your reactions to see if your patience wears thin under temporary silence. Pay close attention to what happens when you are physically in the same room. A genuinely uninterested woman will naturally drift away from your orbit without a second thought. She will not care where you are looking, nor will she register your departure. A woman employing strategic reserve keeps you within her peripheral vision. She might not approach you first, but she ensures she is easily accessible if you choose to bridge the gap. Disinterest pushes you away permanently. Reserve simply measures how much effort you are willing to invest. Understanding this distinction transforms your entire approach to modern romance. You stop reacting out of anxiety and start observing with quiet confidence. When you master the art of reading these subtle behavioral nuances, You eliminate the guesswork and respond with grounded emotional maturity. Patience becomes your strongest ally in navigating the complex layers of female psychology. Look past the distance to find the intention beneath. When faced with the subtle reserve we have explored, your primary advantage is your own internal composure. Impulsive reactions expose a fragile ego. They signal to her that your emotional state depends entirely on her validation. True self-possession refuses to take distance as an insult. Instead, it interprets space as a natural rhythm of testing and pacing. This means you do not chase her absence. You simply match her measured tempo with your own steady presence. Patience is not a passive strategy. It is an active display of emotional security. When she pulls back to observe how you handle the quiet, your lack of reactivity speaks louder than any persuasion. A man anchored in his own purpose never feels rushed. He understands that genuine connection cannot be forced into existence. It must be allowed to breathe, develop, and mature naturally. Integration requires you to bring this awareness into your daily life. Notice your own impulses the next time you feel ignored or tested. Ask yourself whether your urge to reach out comes from genuine desire or simply from the anxiety of uncertainty. Mastering this distinction changes how you experience romance entirely. You stop playing games because you no longer view connection as a contest. Instead, you offer a secure space where both of you can meet. Reflect on your own recent interactions. Where have you rushed where patience would have served you better? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us discuss how quiet confidence transforms modern dating. Subscribe for more insights into the psychology of human connection. Take a moment to let these ideas settle into your awareness. Maintain your boundaries, honor your own pace, and remember that true value never needs to rush.